What's up guys, Coach Thomas here. Today we're gonna be going over hip hinging, how to do it properly, and then also how to incorporate it into your workouts in a progression that makes sense. Let's get into it. So when we talk about hip hinging, the first thing we need to understand is the way our spine works, right? So over here, you can see you have 4 separate regions of your spine. Our first one is our cervical spine. So basically that's your neck area. Second one's gonna be your thoracic spine, okay? And that's just basically from where your rib cage is. So think like just underneath your shoulders, all the way down to the bottom of your rib cage. Then we have our lumbar spine. That's gonna be like our low back area. And then finally we have our sacral region, which is basically just our tailbone. Okay, so it's important to know that your spine is not perfectly straight, right? It has a couple of different curves to it and it just kind of alternates, right? So you can see the cervical spine kind of has an S shape like this, thoracic spine has the opposite shape, lumbar spine has the opposite shape, and then your sacral region also has the opposite shape. So it's important that when we're hip hinging, we're aware of these curves and we maintain this neutral position while we're hinging. So I'm going to show you guys a couple different exercises that we can do to help reinforce that and learn those patterns. So the first exercise I'm going to show you to help reinforce your spinal positions is called a cat-cow. So basically we can get down into our hands and knees on the floor. From there, I'm gonna set my hands just underneath my shoulders, knees are directly underneath my hips, okay? And all I'm thinking about doing is moving my spine, the entire thing, from flexion, so flexing it like this, into extension, and moving it like that, okay? And you're just slowly alternating through those two movement patterns, and you're just kind of feeling out the positions of your spine and getting to know where it's at in space. Right? So the more you do this, the more comfortable you'll get in knowing where your spine's at while you're doing heavy exercises, right? The other thing you can do with this is that you can actually find what your neutral position is. So if you go into deep flexion like this, when you come back to the middle, now you're in neutral. When you go into super extension like this, hyperextension, now you can come back to the middle and that's your neutral spine. And that's just basically a really good tool to know where your spine's at in space. It's also helpful to know that your spine should move. It doesn't just stay stiff all the time. Yes, it's important to keep it neutral and stiff while we're deadlifting or doing other heavy back exercises, but for the most part, your spine is designed to move, right? So we don't need it to be perfectly stable all the time. This is a really good exercise to help remind you of that. Our next positional exercise teaches you how to brace your spine properly when it's under load, right? So for that, we're gonna use our core, we're gonna use our belly as much as we can. And then basically we can create a really tight brace through here, okay? So the best way I've learned to do this is to actually lie down on the floor. You're then gonna take a kettlebell. You're gonna put it into your belly button, okay? And your feet are just flat on the floor here, okay? Nothing too fancy. And then all we're gonna do is inhale, a big belly for ourselves, and brace. And all we're trying to do, again, is just feel that resistance of the kettlebell. And we're trying to expand out, push that kettlebell up, create a big belly for ourselves, hold it in nice and tight, and then let our air out and come back down, okay? So you do a few reps of that, of just inhaling, breathing, and bracing, and getting comfortable creating a brace through your core. And then after that, you should kind of know how it is to brace when you're under load. So now that we're aware of our spinal positions, we know how to brace, now we can start getting into our hip hinge, right? So hip hinging is literally exactly like it sounds. These are your hips right here on your side, okay? And then all you're gonna do is hinge forward like your door hinge, right? So in order to help you maintain that spinal position that we've talked about that's so important when it comes to hip hinging, we have our PVC, okay? So what I'm gonna do with this PVC pipe is basically take it behind my back like this, okay? I'm gonna stick my hand that's holding the PVC here in my cervical spine, so right behind my neck, okay? My other hand is gonna go behind my back and grab right behind my lumbar spine or my lower back, okay? So basically now I have this rod that's connecting all of the pieces of my spine and I have a straight line from my head down to my tailbone. okay? So now all I can do is just get a slight bend in the knees, okay, just to unlock them. And then all I'm gonna do is bend forward, make sure no part of my spine leaves that PVC pipe, get as low as I'm able to, and then I'm gonna come back up nice and tall, okay? And this is our hip hinge. This is basically what you're gonna do every time you deadlift or RDL or whatever it may be, right? Involving hip hinging. We're just gonna keep that spine in that neutral position, okay? And this PVC pipe just helps reinforce so you know where you're at in space. So now that we've established our hip hinge and we know how to do it correctly with really good positioning of our spine, now we can go ahead and start getting into exercises where we can load it up, right? And the first place I like to start with this is usually just a kettlebell, or even a dumbbell works just fine too. But basically this is called a Romanian deadlift, or RDL. So those who didn't know what RDL stood for, it basically stands for Romanian deadlift. Why it's Romanian, I don't know. Find a Romanian person and ask them maybe. I have no idea. But what it is, basically, it's a deadlift that starts at the top, okay? So you see I have my kettlebell, it's set up on top of a bench, okay? The reason I do that is just so I don't have to bend down to learn this progression, right? I have it set up on a stable surface where I can now just kind of pick it up from the top, okay? And now I can start up. So I'm just gonna go ahead and back up, okay? As you can see, I got a very firm grip on the kettlebell. It's right in between my legs. My feet are gonna be just underneath my hips, okay? So a little bit more narrow than, say, a squat stance, right? So underneath our hips here, toes are gonna be pointed forward. From there, I'm just gonna unlock my knees just like I did on that hinging exercise. From there, nothing changes. It's the exact same movement. All I'm doing is keeping my spine locked in, reaching my butt back as far as I'm able to, looking down like I'm looking over a cliff. As soon as I get the biggest stretch in my hamstring that I'm able to, I'm gonna go ahead and stand up, okay? So that's basically the whole movement. Now, where this goes wrong is people will start to bend their spine, right? So instead of it being a nice flat back like this, where you're looking over a cliff, okay, turns into this, where you curl your back all the way down, okay? And that's not really what we're looking for, okay? Again, this is a hip hinge, so working on your hips, right? Not a back hinge, okay? So we're trying to hinge from here, not from here, okay? So we need to make sure every single time we go to bend over, unlock the legs, reach the butt back, look down over that cliff, okay? And we're trying to keep that kettlebell right in between our feet. And then from there, you can stand up nice and tall, okay? Other point, my knees aren't locked out, okay? They're just a little bit unlocked, but they're also not squatting down like this, okay? So you wanna keep them as straight as possible without locking them out. So I just do a quick little unlock, reach back, stand up nice and tall, okay? So that's the Kettlebell RDL. You can also do that with just a single dumbbell. You just grab it by the head and you're good to go. So the next exercise in our progression is just gradually adding more load. So now instead of using a single kettlebell or a single dumbbell, I'm gonna go ahead and grab two. Okay, so all I'm gonna do dumbbells this time, okay? Go ahead, grab a pair, okay? Same exact setup, nothing really changes. My feet are directly underneath my hips, toes are pointed forward, okay? Dumbbells are gonna be by my side though, that's the biggest difference. From there, I can go ahead and unlock my knees, okay? Keep my spine nice and straight, reach my butt back, look over a cliff, and then stand up nice and tall, okay? Biggest thing with this that I see is people will start to reach the dumbbells down, okay, as they get closer to the ground because they're trying to get more range of motion, but they're really just reaching their shoulders and then they lose their spinal position. Then they try and reset and then go ahead and stand up. That's not really what we're looking for, okay? Again, hips and hamstrings, okay, is primarily what we're targeting on this exercise. So we're not really looking for our back. So I don't want you to reach for the floor. Instead, keep your shoulders locked in, okay? Reach your butt back as far as you're able to, get a big stretch. Even if it's right to there, that's fine. Come back up, okay? That's all we're looking for. So that's the double dumbbell or kettlebell RDL. So to continue progressing our exercise, again, we just keep making it heavier. So now we're moving on to a barbell, okay? Barbell, you can load up as heavy as you possibly need to, all the way down to the end of the sleeve. So this is pretty much where our progression ends, at least for the RDL, okay, until we transition into a different exercise, okay? So barbell RDL, pretty much the same mechanics. The only difference is now you have a fixed bar where everything's connected from side to side, right? So I don't have to worry about two dumbbells going different ways, okay? It's not in between my legs anymore. It's now just gonna be out in front of me, okay? Because I can't pass the barbell through my body. So I need to be more aware of where the bar is in space, okay? So basically what I think about is sliding that barbell up and down my legs, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and grab it. I like to go double overhand grip like this, and then I usually use a hook grip. So locking my thumb underneath and then 2 fingers over. It's gonna make it really secure. Some people like to do a mixed grip. I'm not a big fan of that just because one shoulder's internally rotated, the other's externally rotated. Kind of puts you in a weird, awkward, twisted position, okay? Probably not great for sport. So instead I do a double overhand, okay? And then use a hook grip to make it more secure, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and set that. After that, you can stand that barbell up out of the rack, just stand up nice and tall. And then from there, same exact things apply, okay? Set my feet directly under my hips, toes point straight ahead, slightly unlock my knees. From there, reach my butt back, look over the cliff, bend forward, get as low as I can, get that big stretch, and then stand up nice and tall, okay? Again, the only difference is now I need to worry about keeping that barbell as close to my body as possible. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide it down my quads. Once it passes my knees, I'm just gonna keep it as close as I can. And then I'm gonna stand up and slide it back up my quads, okay? So it's just sliding, 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 okay? You can think about that barbell being in contact with your body the whole way through. If the barbell starts to leave your body, you're not tight enough through your upper back with your lats, okay? Sweeping the barbell in, and we need to make that a little bit tighter, okay? And that's one of the biggest things when we start to use the straight bar for deadlifting that we need to be concerned about. So now that we've gotten much stronger in our hinging pattern through increasing load slightly from the kettlebell to then the double dumbbells over to the barbell off the rack, now we can start to work on a deadlift from the floor, okay? Again, we're gonna kind of take it back to the top on this one. So we're gonna start with a kettlebell, okay? For this one, I wouldn't use a dumbbell just because it's a little bit weird and awkward. A kettlebell is better suited for this just because the handle's a little bit raised off the floor, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and try and find my same stance that I use for an RDL, okay? Just outside of wherever that kettlebell is, okay? I'm gonna line the kettlebell up with the knot in my laces on my shoes, okay? That's gonna make sure that kettlebell's close enough to me when I first start, all right? After that, I'm gonna do my same hip hinge. So I'm gonna go ahead and unlock, reach my butt back, okay? And try and bend down and grab the kettlebell. But as you notice, maybe you don't have enough hamstring flexibility to reach all the way down and grab the handle, right? To get into our good start position. So you're gonna have to bend your knees just a little bit more, okay? Again, this is not a squat. We're not looking for our knees to travel forwards over our toes, okay? We're not getting super bendy that way, okay? Again, just think about reaching that butt back as much as you're able to. And then as you run out of room, you can start to bend a little bit more to squat down and grab that kettlebell, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and unlock my knees, hinge at my hips. Once I run out of room here, I can go ahead and drop my butt down just a little bit. And this is my start position, okay? After that, I'm gonna grip that kettlebell nice and tight. And I'm just gonna go ahead and push through my legs and stand up nice and tall, okay? On the way down, I'm gonna go ahead and unlock, hip hinge. As soon as my hands pass my knees, that's when I start to drop my butt down, and then you'll see that I'm in that same start position, okay? Let go, reset, and then stand up. Boom, come back down, let go, okay? The reason I let go and reset on the ground on every single rep is because it's safer on your back, okay? That way we don't lose our brace, we don't lose our core, and our spine stays relatively neutral, okay? It's called a deadlift, not a bounce lift, okay? We're not looking to bounce the implement off the floor, right? We just wanna set it down, reset our tension, reassign our brace, and then we can go into our next rep, okay? So that is the kettlebell deadlift, and this is the first exercise where we're learning to pull off the floor. So now that we know how to get into a good position off the floor, we can now start to gradually increase our load just like we did with the RDL, and we're gonna carry that over into a trapbar deadlift. Now you could progress from a single kettlebell into 2 kettlebells, that's perfectly fine, but a trapbar is pretty much the same thing, okay? The handles, you'll notice, are neutral grip handles, just like you would if you had 2 kettlebells by your sides, okay? So it's pretty much the same thing, only difference is it's connected now from side to side, and we can also load it up much heavier, so we can run this exercise out for a little bit longer, get a lot stronger than if we could on a kettlebell, right? So this is called a trap bar or a hex bar, right? Hex bar meaning because it has 6 sides, it's like a hexagon pattern, okay? The other reason it's called a trap bar is because you're gonna be trapped inside of it, right? So you have metal surrounding your body, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and step into the trap, okay? Step into my trap bar. And then I like to point the front down just to keep it stable, and I can just stand here at the back until I'm ready to go, okay? It's gonna keep the barbell from rolling any which direction, and it's just gonna keep it right there so we know where it's at, okay? Now, when we get into position, because the barbell might roll a little bit or it might tip, you're probably not gonna have the benefit of starting from the top, getting into your start position, right? So we really need to have that start position dialed in before we get to this exercise, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and set up right in the middle of the trap bar, okay? Now, when I say the middle of the trap bar, it's wherever the sleeve here, the end of the barbell, would drive through my body to the other sleeve on the other side, okay? I need to make sure I'm directly in the center of it. Otherwise, it's probably gonna wanna tilt forward or backwards, and that's not what we want, okay? Same thing with our grip. Our grip needs to be right in the center of these handles, okay? And that way, again, it doesn't tip forward or backwards or some weird direction, okay? So set up right in the center. Same setup position. I'm gonna have my feet directly under my hips, toes are pointed straight ahead, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and bend down, get my butt down just a little bit, chest up nice and tall. I find that same start position I had with the kettlebell, and then I'm gonna create my brace, get some tension, and then from there, I can go ahead and just stand up, okay? Notice the bar didn't go out in front of me. It's just right by my sides here, okay? And then again, unlock my knees, hinge. As soon as my hands pass my knees, I start to squat down, okay? Another rep for you. Stand, hinge, drop, okay? Reset my tension, stand, hinge, drop, okay? And that is the Trapbar Deadlift. So now we've reached our final hip hinge exercise, and that's just gonna be a straight bar deadlift from the floor. Okay. There are a few other hip hinging variations that you can get into, couple different alternatives that may target the hips a little bit more, may target the quads a little bit more, just different variations that do different things. One of those might be like a sumo deadlift where I have a super wide stance, right? But we're not really gonna get into those today. I'm just going over the basics of deadlifting. So today we're gonna be working on that straight bar conventional deadlift. So same stance that we've been using, okay? Feet directly under our hips, toes pointed straight ahead, okay? Now, with this, it's much more difficult than with the trap bar because again, because it is a fixed bar and the bar cannot pass through your body, now you have to be worried about where that bar is in space, okay? You can't let it get too far out in front of you, okay? If you're leaning forward like this and the bar gets out in front of you like this, what's gonna happen to your back? Pop, right? So we need to make sure that we keep that barbell tucked in really, really close so that we can continue to brace through our spine and keep that neutral position, okay? So when I set up on this bar, I wanna be as close to it as possible. Before I ever reach down and grab the bar, my shins are touching the bar, okay? That's so I can keep that barbell close and remind myself this bar needs to stay on my body, okay? From there, I'm gonna go ahead and hip hinge and then bend just a little bit to get into my start position, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and set my grip. Again, I like a hook grip better than a mixed grip, okay? Mixed grip is your choice if you wanna use that, but I would rather do this just to keep my shoulders and spine a little bit healthier, okay? From there, I'm gonna set my tension, get nice and tight. I'm gonna lean back into my heels just a little bit so that barbell feels like it's rolling into me, and then I can go ahead and stand. Push my hips through at the top, just stand up nice and tall, okay? When I say push your hips through, that doesn't mean do this, okay? That's not what we're looking for. I just want you to stand up straight at the top, okay? When you're going back down to the floor, again, we're gonna do it under control. I'm gonna unlock my knees, hinge until the bar passes my knees, and then I start to drop my butt, and now I'm in that same start position. Reset my tension, get my weight back in my heels a little bit more, push and stand. Hinge, and set it down, okay? So that's a conventional deadlift. Again, on this, we're doing both sides of the movement. I'm not just dropping from the top, okay? I wanna get that eccentric loading or the lowering portion as well, because I'm gonna get more work on my hips and my hamstrings as I do that, okay? Also, reset between reps. It's not a bounce lift, it's a deadlift, okay? Reassign your tension between every single rep, okay? That's our conventional deadlift, and that's everything as far as hip hinging goes. If you guys have any questions, feel free to write it down in the comments or reach out to me.